My question is, I'm gonna be looking to, purchase my first home here in the next few years. And I got a certain way I would plan that I came up with that I think is a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
So I got two questions. First question is, for example, let's say I make 80 grand a year.
Mm-hmm.
When I go and sit down with the person looking for a house, I find a house I like.
Yep.
How I want to do it is, okay, I make 80 grand a year, but I want to only search for houses that a person who makes 60 grand a year can afford.
Mm-hmm.
They ask you your financials, they ask you how much you make a year. So I'm going to tell the guy, instead of going off what I actually make, only show me houses that you would show a person who makes 60 grand a year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's the first question. You guys think that's a good idea? Second question is,
Okay.
what is the best way of paying off a house in 15 years? Because I know the standard is 30 years, six mortgage. I'm
Okay.
33 years old. I don't want to, take 30 years to pay a house off.
Right.
60 something years old. By the time I pay it off,
Okay.
I don't want to wait that long.
All
I
right.
want
So
to pay off a house. I want to pay off one house, actually two houses, in a time it takes a normal person to pay off one house.
all right, Sam. Here's what we're going to talk about first. Let me take the second part of the question first. Okay. So, what is the best way to pay it off in 15 years? I don't know, because our average client pays it off between 7 and 9 years, not 15. So, would it be okay to pay off that 30-year mortgage in 7 to 9 years instead of 15? Would that be okay with you?
Yeah, definitely. It sure would, man. If I could pay off a 30-year mortgage in 7 years, I mean, I would be thinking that I must be in some type of fixer-upper house or something with boarded windows, something like that.
So let's take a look at your other question. So you say, well, let me get a house that a person that makes 60 grand a year can afford. And so that wouldn't be the way to go about it. Okay. The way to go about it is, how much house do you want to purchase? I mean, how many bedrooms do you want? How many bathrooms do you want? What kind of house do you want to look like? I mean, how much do you want to spend on the house?
The ideal house for me, I'm in Florida, so I
Yeah.
don't know if anybody here knows the Florida market, but
That's
I
hot.
would like a house, with some land on an acre or two.
Mhm.
I want a backyard with trees and stuff like that. Like I just want to live in like a nice house on some land. Like I'm real big on land.
Yeah.
I want to be out like, in a real, those woody areas.
Yeah.
I don't know how you classify those, but that's the ideal place for me. Big backyard, big front yard. I would
Okay.
personally take less house and more land with more house and less land.
And see, that's what you need to do, sir. I would make out that list and find out what we could do there. Okay. Then the next thing is to get pre-qualified for a mortgage to see how much mortgage you can actually afford. All right. That's number two. How much mortgage can you actually afford with what you're making? Now, let's take a look at what's really going on with the loan. I'm just going to throw some numbers out here. Okay. Let's just say, because you're in Florida, let's just say that we're looking at about $400,000. Okay. Now, if that's all you had to pay is the $400,000, I mean, that would mean you get 0% interest, and 0% interest, then everything you pay would go towards principal. And then what we could do is then do a little bit of math, right? I need you to watch this. And let's see here. We're going to pull up a calculator and put that on screen. We're going to take our $400,000, okay, and divide it by 360 payments. And if it was no interest, the payment would be $1,111. Okay, $1,111, and in 30 years, you'd be done. But we have to pay interest. So it's not the size of the loan that's more important, is how much am I going to pay to manage that loan? Okay, so right now, a $400,000 loan is going to be about 3.5%, soon to go to about 4%. So let's put 3.5% in here. Okay, 400,000 Now our payment is $1,796. So it's not that much more than our $1,100 payment, correct?
Right.
It's not that much more. All right. But when you make your payment, only $629 of that money goes to the loan, $1,166.67 instead of going to your loan goes to interest. So what we teach is how to manage not paying all of that interest, because it's the interest that's the killer, not the size of the loan. Even though our payment is not that much more than if it was 0% interest. You've got a payment of $1,111, which would all go to principal, as opposed to a $1,700 payment, which is not that much more, but most of that money now goes to interest. So it never was the loan. It's always been the interest cost. And we look at interest rate. Now, let's say, well, Don, listen, you're talking about a 3.5. What if I can get myself a 2.9 interest rate? Okay. Now, right now, with the 3.5% interest rate, the bank wants a total of $246,000 in interest on a $400,000 loan. $246,000 in interest on a $400,000 loan. Did you realize that's 61% of what you borrowed? So that 3.5% goes to 61%. $246,000 on a $400,000 loan. So you end up paying $646,000. Okay. Do you want to pay $646,000 for your $400,000 home, sir?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. So it's the interest that's the problem, not the amount of money that you borrow. So we're going to change.
How do we beat that?
How
do we beat the interest?
So you give the bank back their money at a time they're not expecting it. And it makes it impossible for them to charge you interest.
But Don has some valuable information that can contribute to the quality of a person's life. And it only costs you a few dollars. It's his book. Why not get that?
I'm going to go through the P.I.L.L method myself with some of my investment properties. So I'm going to link up with Don, and then I'm going to sit down with him, show him my investment portfolio, and see how I can eliminate interest.